So I never understood why the Buick Roadmaster was portrayed as such a loser car in all these movies and commercials, like the one right here. You probably saw this a couple years ago, and I was like, what, man? If I had this for my first car, I would be pimping this thing with a wood grain, hood emblem, third row seat. I mean, I would love somebody just to drive me and sit in that rear facing third row seat and just look at traffic. You know, when you're young, just looking out the window and seeing what's out there, because there was no phones, unlike now. But that was just so much fun. And having a better view would be so cool. Not only that, as a teenager, some of y'all like to have a lot of room. Bench seats are great, and this is 3 of them. You could have a lot of fun in this vehicle. And if you want to bring all your friends, your girlfriends along, I mean, you can have 5 of them if you want. 5, 6, pack some more in there, 8, who knows? And you're doing it all with style. I never understood. I mean, it could be a hand-me-down car. I understand at one point these cars were new, and now, you know, the dad gives it to his son or whatever, but I would be so happy if this was my first car. This right here was my first car. It is the base version of any kind of wagon that you could get, and although I love this car to death, it does not have a V8, it does not have a rear facing third row, it does not have the plush interior, it doesn't have the wood grain. I mean, this car is on a whole nother level. I know it's not a Maserati or something, but damn, this is a pretty good first car. And you can find these reliable, luxurious driving couches for like 3 to 10 grand depending on what spec you want. And like you've heard, depending on the year, you could even get one with a Corvette motor in it. So in this video, if I didn't sell you already, you'll probably get sold during the video. We're gonna go over everything you need to know before buying a Buick Roadmaster, from the years, the trims, the common problems these cars have, rare parts that will add value to the Buick Roadmaster you're looking at, and last but not least, the 5 rarest colors you could find on the Buick Roadmaster. The Roadmaster was around from 1991 to 1996, and throughout those years, a lot of things changed. For 1991, they had the 5-liter LO3 small block V8, also known as a 305, that came in a 3rd-gen Camaros and Firebirds. So even if you don't get the Buick Roadmaster with the Corvette engine, you can still brag that you have an engine from a Firebird, Trans Am, Camaro, whatever your second favorite car after the Roadmaster is, you can still brag that it has a cool engine in it. But unlike the 3rd-gen Camaros or the Trans Am, these Buick Roadmasters only came attached to a 4-speed automatic. For power, the LO3 made 170 horsepower and 255 pound-feet of torque. And that's not bad for a family commuter wagon, even in today's standards. But it gets better. In 1992, they took out that LO3 and put in the LO5. This new 5.7 liter small block V8 made 180 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque. I would be happy with this. I mean, you put my 4Runner and Corolla together and it still probably doesn't have 180 horsepower. In 1993, nothing really changed, and then in 1994, the big bang happened for the Roadmaster. They decided to put the Corvette 5.7 liter LT1 engine in there, and not only that, but they added a dual exhaust system. They made this thing a real hot rod for grandmas, and this made 260 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque in a family wagon, which is insane. I mean, this thing can out-tow my 4Runner with a tow capacity of 5,000 pounds. And I know my 4Runner is not meant for towing, but still, a truck that can't tow is kind of crazy. And after all that changing, they kind of gave it a rest. In 1995, they didn't really change anything, and then in 1996, they had to change something. They probably didn't want to, because changing stuff costs money, and if you're in a business, you don't want to spend too much money if you're not going to make money back. But the government stuck their foot in and said you got to have OBD2, so 1996 is the only year you can have it. Is 1996 the year you want? Well, it's up to your preference. OBD1 is where you have a little flashing light that tells you what's wrong, and OBD2 is where you have a little computer you can plug in under your dash and it'll tell you what's wrong with your car. Either one is great. Personally, I don't mind either or, and it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. But if you want the most modern Buick Roadmaster you can get the 1996. Now for trims, I'm going to go over the ones that you need to know about, and also things that will add value to the Buick Roadmaster you're looking at. First one is going to be the V92 Grand Touring / Trailer Tow Package. This came with 2.93 to 1 axle ratio, an auxiliary transmission cooler, heavy duty alternate suspension, heat reflective glass, and it could come with the G67 suspension package, which is an auto leveling air suspension upgrade. Another one you want to look out for is the G80 limited slip differential package. As the name states, this came with a limited slip differential, and those are the functional packages. Now let's go on to the interior luxury packages that you can get. Of course, there's going to be the base model, and then it goes to luxury, then to Prestige, and then to the Z27 Limited Wagon package. I'm not going to go over every little detail these packages have just because there's stuff that does not really matter. And if you're into super luxurious stuff, then obviously get the top package, the Z27 Limited package. And if you're not really into all that fancy stuff, then just get the base. And if you're somewhere in between, get something in between. But all this stuff just pertains to floor mats, carpeting, seat memory positions, different headlights, and what stuff like that. Now for common problems, these bad boys are pretty stout. But with any car, there are some things you want to look out for more than others. And the first one is looseness in the pitman or idler arm. This is just purely because of age and how much these cars get driven. Like I said, they're reliable, so people actually use these to drive. It's not like a car they stuck in the garage. Now, some old people did stick them in the garage because they physically couldn't drive that often, but seeing a high mileage example of these is not rare. And because of that, the steering could be loose. Is this a big problem? Not really. You just need to get some new arms and you'll be good to go. And they're not that expensive to get. The only issue is taking the pitman arm off. I have had my fair share of difficulty with that, and one time my buddy actually just bought a new steering box because he couldn't get the pitman arm off. It was kind of like a while you're in there type of thing, you might as well get a new steering box. And also after 4 hours of tugging on the damn thing, it sounds like a great idea. Another common problem on these cars is the ignition control module goes bad, so if the car is running rough or doesn't start at all, this might be the case, and there's really no way to stop this other than getting a quality unit. Some people cheap out and get that Chinese junk, and the main culprit for these going bad are moisture and heat. Me, I live in Florida. We got both of them down here. So if I ever plan to buy one of these, I gotta be super careful. And speaking of moisture, here comes the biggest problem that plagued the LT1 Buick Roadmasters. And if you've seen some of my other videos on 90s GM cars, you probably already know this, but the LT1 has a big problem, and it's called OptiSpark. Pretty much some idiot at GM decided to put the distributor under the water pump, and although the water pump is a basic maintenance issue, you know, there's a standard miles it should be replaced. Sometimes they last a little bit longer, but the problem is it starts leaking out of that weep hole. Now you can still drive the car, but the weep hole is supposed to let you know that it needs to be replaced. The only issue though is that it starts to weep right on top of the OptiSpark. And the OptiSpark, it's an electrical system. It don't like water, but guess where the water goes? Right on top of it, and it just destroys the OptiSpark. Now, good thing for you, all B bodies, which are Roadmasters, come with a vented OptiSpark, so the liquid can get out, it can evaporate, but over time, if water just keeps on dripping on there, it's gonna have the same effect, and you're gonna have to replace the OptiSpark. So make sure on these cars, if you buy it, check the water pump. When you drive it, check the water pump. Not every day, but just like every couple months, if you don't know when it was last replaced. If it was last replaced a year ago, you probably don't have to worry about this, but it would be way better just to replace the water pump than the water pump in the OptiSpark, especially if you're on a budget. Now, if it does go bad, you have a couple options. You could replace it with another vented OptiSpark. I would recommend going with an OEM unit because those last the longest out of all the ones I've seen, but there's also a couple ways just to remove the vented OptiSpark. And it is costly, but it might save you in the long run if this is your third or fourth time replacing the OptiSpark. And the last thing that I want to bring up before we go into the rare parts, there's a lot of people that look for these cars only want the LT1 version. But if you're looking for just a good fun daily, then I would also recommend looking at the earlier years too, just because these weren't beat on as much. Everybody knows that the LT1 is in these cars, so the people that buy them like to hot rod them. But the 1991 through 1993 ones, they're kind of under the radar. People just still use these as dailies. And if you're looking for a daily, these will probably break down less. Now for rare parts, since these were made in the US, it's not like a Japanese car where there's a billion rare parts that were only made in Europe, in Japan, in Australia. There's none of that. All right, but if you're looking at these for a collector's point of view, there's a couple things that stand out that a lot of people will pay extra money for. First, the estate wagons always go for more money, which means if you're looking for a good deal, the sedans are it. Second, LT1 cars. Everybody wants them and nobody really wants the other ones, even though they're really cool. And third, everybody that wants the LT1 cars and the estate wagons wants to top it off with the tow package. The tow package makes the car more fun. With the 2.93 rear axles, it makes the car more peppy, and with the stock ratio, it's just another car. So if you are one of those guys looking to hot rod a car and you want the best of the best version of the Buick Roadmaster that everybody's gonna drop their jaw over, you're looking for an estate wagon with the LT1 with the tow package. Now for rare colors, the Buick Roadmaster has them. Now, the only thing is they're not that cool. And I don't know if that's because of the influence of grandma and grandpa back in the day saying, that color's a little too crazy for me. It needs to be black or white or the shade of death. But they're definitely old people colors. The first one on the list, another thing, they have super long names. So this one is called Medium Garnet Red Metallic, and this was only made in 1996. The second most grandpa red you could ever have. It's not bright red, it's not dark red, it's in between, and it's kind of bland. Next one on the list, Dark Green Gray Metallic. Dark green and gray sounds like a good combination, and then when you look at it, it's just like, that's kind of bland. It honestly almost looks blue to me, but I could definitely see an old lady driving to church in this bad boy right here. And this is a 1996 exclusive color. Now next up on the list, we have a color that almost looks the damn same as the last one. And this is a 1991 color only, and this is called Dark Sapphire Blue. And I mean, it is what it is. It almost looks black in the shade. It might be a little bit blue in the light, but Grandpa is digging these colors. For number 2 on the list, this is probably my favorite right here. This is called Dark Cherry Metallic, and this is only made in 1996. With the wood grain and the dark cherry paint, it looks pretty stellar. This is the one I'm looking for right here when I decide to buy a Buick Roadmaster. And this exact one sold, I hate to say it, it's sold for $35,500 on Bring a Trailer. So maybe my dreams are unobtainable now. And last but not least, we've got a 1995 exclusive color for the first spot on this list, and these are in no particular order at all. I'm just putting numbers. And this is called Platinum Gray Metallic. And I mean, it is what it is. That's all I gotta say. It is what it is. I feel like this is a color to get donkified the most just because it almost matches chrome wheels, and if you're putting 33s or whatever the hell they put on those cars, it would look pretty decent for being that ugly. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video on the Buick Roadmaster. If you have any other suggestions, leave them down in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and join the Discord if you like playing video games, talking about cars, need help in your car, any of that stuff, join it. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace out.